Hi, friends. Thank you so much for being here today. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Normally when I do my tutorials, I kind of have a certain amount of points that I want to talk about, and I kind of stick to that. But today I'm going to weave some of my personal stories into the tutorial because it's pertinent to what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do a tutorial about art journaling for beginners, using what we have starting where we are. When I was in my mid teens, I started art journaling kind of accidentally. So I come from an extremely abusive and toxic family of origin background. And I started journaling basically just in a diary, a cheap composition book, when I was probably about 13. I It was a way for me to get out all my feelings and try to make sense of a nonsensical environment and situation. So I did not have any art supplies really. I just used what I had. So I had a basic glue stick that, it wasn't archival or artist quality. It was just a glue stick and a basic pen. Again, not waterproof, not archival, not artist quality, none of that. And I had a very, very cheap paint. Now, this is Apple Barrel, which you can pick up for under $2 in any kind of craft store or a big box store in the craft section. And I don't remember what brand I had, but this Apple Barrel paint is about $2. And the paint that I started off with when I was in my mid teens was way more inferior in quality. So this is actually quite a good um, paint compared to the one I started off with. But I do remember I had an alizarin crimson. It wasn't a bright red, it was a very dark red. So we're going to stick with that. And I had a pencil, and I did have some basic things, papers, which I didn't know it was collage. It was just, magazines and just say junk mail, just things that I would collect because they were interesting to me. And I had no idea why they were interesting to me, but I would have them. So this over here is a very cheap composition book. You can probably pick it up for, under $2 as well. And this was kind of the book that I started off with, these kinds of books for my diary. So, what happened though that changed everything, that turned my diary into a more artsy type of thing, an art journal, if you will, was that a friend of mine re-gifted me a basic pencil set that she had been given, and she had no use for it. So she asked me if I wanted it, and I said sure, and I was very grateful to have this pencil set. Now, it was just a very basic pencil set that had an HB pencil, a couple of H pencils, a couple of B pencils, a pencil sharpener, an art eraser, and what it did have was also a charcoal pencil. Now, I had no idea how to use a charcoal pencil, or I had no idea what its properties were, what it did, but all I knew was that I really loved it. And I'm 55 years old, so when I was in my mid teens, there was no YouTube, no internet, and I just had no understanding of what to do with this charcoal pencil. All I knew was that I really loved it. So that kind of started me kind of being more kind of artistic, I guess. And so basically, what I used to do is I used to write. So, like I said, I just started with a journal, a diary, and just journaling in it. So, I would write down this way. And if you can see this writing here, it's unintelligible. But I would also turn my page around, and then I would also write this way as well. And the reason why I did that is because I had absolutely no privacy in my home. And if I left my diary out, it would there was a very high likelihood of somebody going through it and reading it. And there were no boundaries in my home, and there was no such thing as privacy. So this was a way for me to protect what I had written. And then you can turn it over and you can write over it again. And so nobody can understand what it is, but it still gets all of your thoughts and feelings out. So I'm just going to illustrate what I mean. So I would write on the page. like this, pour out all of my thoughts and feelings, and sometimes even poetry. Then what I would do is I would turn it around. So say I would turn the page around and write over top of it like so, and then my writing would be unintelligible. So that's what I would do. And from an art perspective, I didn't know it at the time, but this is so interesting. Like, look at all the marks and the lines of this. It's just a really interesting page to me. And it's a good way to get rid of the fear of the blank page. So that's what I would do with my diary. And then, of course, sometimes I would doodle. So nothing major, just, you know, just kind of doodling, making some lines, making some marks. It was just like very meditative and very cathartic for me to kind of just play around. So, like I said, nothing over the top. Now, what I would do with my charcoal pencil is I started experimenting with it. So, even though I had no idea what it did or whatever, I would just kind of like play around with it and see what it did. And even in the early years when I first started drawing, I always kind of drew a girl or a lady. I don't know why. It's almost like a compulsion. I've always been kind of attracted to drawing a face or a lady or something like that, a figure. So I would kind of draw a figure, and, it was nothing over the top, just it looked like a face. And I would just kind of draw. And now, what I used to do back then, and it's such a great loosening up exercise, is I would just like say, so this red over here, I really love that for her lips. So I'm just going to kind of cut out her lips, and it doesn't have to be even any kind of a particular shape or anything. I'm just going to cut out, that's going to be her lips right there. And I want this green. I want this green over here for the nose because I just think it's kind of interesting. So let's see here. And you can even rip it out. You don't even really need scissors because, I mean, if you want to use scissors, but the edges just makes everything so interesting. So I'm just gonna kind of go like so, and that's gonna be her nose. So just see a very basic kind of a face there. And what I started doing is I just started gluing stuff on the page, and I didn't even really know what I was doing or why I was doing it, but I would just glue stuff on the page. And it was just really calming for me and just a way for me to play and have fun, and also while healing me. Like, I just always felt so much better after I art journaled, and I didn't know why. So what my recommendation is, because a lot of people when they first start something new, it can be really intimidating, and sometimes people don't have enough time, and so they kind of, um, it's a deterrent, because they think, oh, well, I don't have enough time, so I don't want to, I can't meet the requirement to art journal every day or once a week or whatever. But what I found was that if you make your art journal a really safe space for you to go to, it's a place where you can be authentically yourself. You can write what you want. You can draw what you want. You can just be yourself. And if you feel better after it, like, you don't have to pin it into your calendar because you're just going to be drawn to doing it. I mean, there's just, you, if something makes you feel good and it's a beautiful, safe space for you to go to, like, you're just going to naturally be drawn to go in there and create. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some of this red paint, and I'm just going to kind of go over that, like just go around that, like so. And still, I'm just like playing around. I'm not really doing anything. I'm just having fun. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add some red to her dress over there. And again, I'm just going to kind of doodle a little bit. And I remember all my figures from this time. They always have lots and lots of tears coming down her face, because I really did have a horrific experience as a child and as a teenager. And now that I have my own teen daughter, I marvel at the fact that I even survived my childhood at all, that I'm here and I'm healthy and I'm happy and I'm thriving and I'm creating. And that to me is, I marvel at it. And I absolutely credit my creativity and art journaling from this young age for, me making it through. And so when I say that art journaling saved my life, I mean it literally. And art journaling is such a healing modality. And I really wouldn't want people to think that they cannot art journal because they don't have enough time or they don't have all the art supplies or what have you, because we don't need to have all these tools and techniques and supplies before we start doing anything, really. We just don't. We start with where we are. We we use what we have and we begin from where we are. Everybody has to start somewhere. And those art journals of mine when I was so young, I mean, they were really just a lifesaver for me. And now I can add more text over here. I can turn it around and I can say, I can add more text all over the page, even write poetry or fragments of a dream or to-do lists or anything at all. So more doodling. So as you can see, this page is just using some very, very basic art supplies and not even really any techniques. When I first started, I did not even know that collage was called collage or collage was a thing. I had no idea. And I didn't have access to the internet or anything. So, I mean, nobody did. There was no internet back then. So, say this FW artist ink over here, acrylic ink, it's probably, I mean, I can't remember how much I paid for it, but I'm thinking it was somewhere between $7 and $10. And if you have like, 20 or 30 colors, it can really add up. So, and that's just acrylic ink. That's not anything else. It's not like acrylic paints or oil pastels or this or that. So, I would hate for somebody to not start art journaling because they don't have the money or the resources to go and spend like, $500 on art supplies, or they don't have the time to commit to art journaling. Because honestly, if you make your art journal such a beautiful therapeutic space, you're just going to be drawn to go in there and work in it. I remember, especially when I was in my mid teens, I would go into my art journal and spend hours and hours and hours just writing and doodling and creating and doing whatever. So that is my basic story of how I started art journaling. And I hope this has been helpful, and I hope this has been inspiring for you to start art journaling if you are a beginner, or if you were just thinking, well, maybe I should start art journaling. What is art journaling? How can I even begin when I don't know how to, you know, draw, or I don't know how to use certain products? These are just very, very basic tools and supplies. So I really hope that this has been helpful. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Bye.